One of my other principles that I firmly believe in is the closer to nature that you get, the better it's going to be. I remember, because I've been doing this stuff for 35, 40 years, whatever I've been, however long I've been doing this. But whenever things like margarine or fake fat came out and stuff like that, I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. Butter's great. You know what I mean? Butter metabolizes. So the closer to nature that you can get. But I also very strongly believe in the 80-20 principle, which is 20% of the time you do whatever you want, and 80% of the time do what you're supposed to do. And in a very, very ancient Chinese secret way, if you choose to do something in that 20% that isn't good for you, fully commit to it and enjoy it.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. Patients are constantly dropping by with challenges and questions that I find surprisingly resonant. They say something that gives me a peek at an answer to a question that I've had, or pose a question that I think I'd be wise to ask myself. I keep a list of these questions so I can reflect on them in a quieter moment. Sometimes these are the tinder for these little editorials that I share before we get into a podcast conversation. This is one of them. A patient shared this with me. He was asking himself the question of, what does flourishing look like for me? Two things happened for me when I noodle on this one. First is, what is flourishing in a general sense? Basics that I or anyone else would need to have a life of, well, I suspect Jefferson might have been thinking about this when he wrote Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, or Maslow with his hierarchy of needs. There are elements that go into creating a flourishing human life that all humans would need. But my patient wasn't talking politics or ideology. He was asking, what does flourishing look like for him? And that's a tougher question to gnaw on. Really, it's easier to consider what's needed for flourishing in general. But to sit down and consider what flourishing is for you personally, well, I found this to be more difficult. I suspect it's difficult because I need to have a truthful moment with myself. And here's the other thing. Do I have the courage and fortitude to actually go after what is missing? Really, I think this touches too on values clarification. What I actually believe and what perhaps I no longer do, but keep around like a souvenir from an old love affair or an old hurt that I've yet to forgive. I suspect that flourishing at 22 looks very different from flourishing at 32. And at 52, yeah, you'd best be served to have another map for what flourishing includes, and maybe more importantly, what it doesn't. Sitting down and honestly writing out what constitutes flourishing for me, it's a bit of a comfort. Part relief, a modicum of embarrassment, and a glimpse into some of the aspects of myself that I'd not considered. It helps to give the quiet parts a voice. Working out what is important at any particular stage of life, it's an ongoing project as you stack up the decades. Increasingly, I've come to appreciate the work of developmental psychologists who, while they have different models, are all in agreement that there are challenges at each stage of development that require rising to before you have the capacity to take on the next phase. Remaining true to your 18-year-old self is not a consistency to be proud of. It's a betrayal of your 50-year-old self. Su Wen Chapter 1 talks about the cycles of 7 in women and 8 in men. Our bodies change. We inhabit different biochemistry. And that's the focus of this conversation with Mark Brinson, in which he shares his personal journey of aging into his 50s and exploring hormone replacement therapy along with the Chinese medicine he practices. HRT is not what it was 10 or 15 years ago. Furthermore, it's not about trying to turn back the hands of time, but more to be able to live more fully in the present moment. He's discovered some interesting things along the way, including the use of peptides in a way that sounds a bit like what we'd call a chi tonic. If you're familiar with his evil bone water, you'll know he's a bit of an exploratory fellow. I appreciate in this conversation how he blends Chinese medicine with modern HRT in a way that both connects them, but also delineates the domain of each. It gets a bit geeky at times. You might want to grab something to take notes with. Go do that now. We'll be right back, right after this. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. All the sponsors here provide helpful products or services that you'll find beneficial in your clinical work. Do you like working with palpatory diagnosis and have a taste for how the classics describe acupuncture? Slade Burris has a foundations class in neoclassical acupuncture coming up next month. Heal your patients and dramatically reduce the amount of trash that your clinic generates. AcuFast needles help you do that. Mayway Herbs is celebrating the new year by focusing on restorative tonic formulas that help with cognition and burnout. And later in the show, you'll hear how Jane's suite of clinical management tools makes office management a breeze, and why Blue Poppy is the place to go for fine handcrafted teishin and other Japanese acupuncture tools. Be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to see all the special offers that our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast.
Hi, I'm Kylie Roger, and I practice neoclassical acupuncture, a palpatory style which gives you instant feedback. This style has made me more present, more precise, and it's elevated my clinical results, and I'm not alone in this. Here's what other practitioners have to say.
The neoclassical skills that I learned have really streamlined the way that I make my diagnoses, which result in a faster treatment. The patients like it, they like the results, and I'd recommend it for anyone that wants to add another skill set to their toolbox.
Practicing neoclassical acupuncture has been a life-changing experience for myself and my practice. I've seen remarkable results in my patients and gained greater confidence as a practitioner. I highly recommend.
Neoclassical acupuncture has completely changed my practice, and I love the amazing and lasting results that I see with the medicine.
Start your journey with neoclassical acupuncture with the Foundations course next month. Visit neoclassicalacupuncture.com to register for the Foundations course in February. I don't know about you, but sometimes I take a step back and marvel at my acupuncture needles. They are the world's simplest medical tool, a sharpened wire and a handle. With this simple tool, hundreds of health conditions can be resolved. I love it. What I didn't love was the amount of packaging waste made from conventional single and bulk package needles. Also, my old bulk package needles often came with a tube that I didn't use, and the needles would sometimes spill out of the open pouch. When I switched my clinic to AcuFast earth-friendly needles, I reduced my clinic AcuTrash by up to 93%, and there were no more wasted tubes. Plus, the simple and innovative AcuClip accessory meant no more spilled needles. Like our simple needle, making a positive impact on our environment is simple too. Start by requesting your free custom AcuFast needle sample with AcuClip by visiting acufastneedles.com/Qiological.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lau, president of Mayway Herbs. The start of a new year is a time of transition. After months of outward movement and depletion, January invites us to turn inward, rebuild, and nourish what will sustain us over the long term. Throughout January, our focus is on tonic formulas, with special attention to cognition, burnout, and the kind of deep support that helps the body and mind adapt to change. In our newsletter and Chinese Medicine Matters podcast, we'll be exploring Chinese medicine approaches to brain health as well as adrenal fatigue, and how our medicine understands depletion and recovery. Since 1969, Mayway Herbs has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. Our Plumflower brand line includes pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, alongside educational resources designed to support thoughtful, effective clinical practice. Visit us at mayway.com to explore our offerings, sign up for our newsletter, and listen to Chinese Medicine Matters. From all of us here at our family business, deep thanks for your continued trust and support.
Mark Brinson, welcome back to Qiological.
Thanks for having me back.
We had a lot of fun last time. We were talking about evil bone water.
Yes, and we still keep trucking with that. We're going to end up the year about 35% up, which is typical year after year. So this is, we're just...
Oh, congratulations. Oh, my God. When you go in public, I want to buy some of that.
Yeah, right on. Oh, yeah. We'll only grow as far as we can, and we still make it by hand. And I thought we would have passed that mark a long time ago. But I've just been innovating, from pulling from the brewing industries and the distilling industries in order to actually even make a better product. So as long as I can keep doing that, we'll keep growing a little bit.
Are you ever going to make whiskey for us?
Oh, gosh. That's another story. But let's just say that our alcohol will become an even better quality than it currently is with me purchasing it.
Yeah, this is not a puff piece here for Evil Bone Water, but I just have to tell you, it's a fabulous product. And you know what my favorite part of Evil Bone Water is?
What's that?
Saying to my patients, I got this stuff, it's really great. Evil Bone Water. I love saying Evil Bone Water to my patients.
I hear so many different names for that because my patients are always shy to say it. But it's fun. It is fun. It's memorable.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about Evil Bone Water today. We're here to talk about something else.
Yeah, yes, indeed. I've been through a journey, I guess you could say, my wife and I, for about the past... It's probably a little over 3 years now of kind of menopause, and hormone replacement, and trying all the kind of biohacking that we could, as well as, of course, Chinese medicine, to sort of keep the hands of time where they are. Maybe not turn them back as much as just slow them down. One of the things that I'm convinced that happens, I've always taken care of myself, but maybe for the past 8 years, I've really worked out and taken care of myself because it gets older. I mean, it gets more important as we age. But one of the things that I'm sure of is that part of this whole process is you just lose your ability to recover as well. I mean, the things that I could get away with at 25 or 30, I can no longer get away with, or I'll get away with them, but I'll pay a whole lot longer for maybe.
You don't really get away with them. You rack up some debt.
You do.
You rack up metabolic debt.
Absolutely. And I figured it was kind of time to talk about that because I feel like we're finally at the end of the hormonal replacement journey, or maybe not the end, the refinement of it has happened. But also RFK just came out with the announcement that they're going to take the black box warnings off of women's hormone replacement therapy, or all hormone replacement therapy.
So for people that don't know what that means, what does it mean to take off a black box warning?
So what they did is around 1999, there were some studies, and actually it turns out it was just one study, and it was very poor, that suggested that it could lead to hormone replacement therapy, could lead to cancer, et cetera. So we went from about a quarter of people, mostly women during menopause, that were going into that. They would go on to some type of hormone replacement therapy. But what a black box warning does, people don't really understand that. It's literally a black box that is on the product that says, hey, this could cause cancer, this could cause death, this could cause things. Turns out it was completely false. And when they go back to the notes, yeah, it wasn't really there. They just didn't know. So they said, we'll make it that way. So why would that matter if someone was to prescribe it? Because all of a sudden, here's the real problem, is physicians view it with a totally different liability. They're like, if I prescribe this and something happens to this person, it's going to come back on me. So what ended up happening is now, I think they said something like 4% of women do hormone replacement therapy. The numbers just dropped completely. And a lot of them that did it are doing it in the most base way, which is your GP giving you birth control pills or like an IUD that has hormones in it, things like that, because it can help. It is not as good as really well done hormone replacement therapy. And so what's happened over the past probably 10 years is human performance clinics, anti-aging clinics, and I hate the word anti-aging, but it's the best that we've got for this. They started doing it.
Well, how else would you say it?
What's that?
How else would you say it?
I don't know. Just optimizing what you've got, maybe, but that's the best way you can say it. So there's some of them that are doing it really right. There's also some places that are just kind of mills. You know what I mean?
We have a bunch of mills. I've seen mills all over the place.
Yeah. And when I say mills too, they're not monitoring it's a step, right? They're not afraid to prescribe these things, which is a big step. And that's been going on for about 5 years. If you would have asked me how I felt about hormone replacement sort of 5 to 10 years ago, I probably would have discouraged people because I hadn't heard a lot of good stories, especially men. What used to happen with men never talk about hormone replacement. It's like this big taboo because part of it involves testosterone replacement, TRT. And I would totally agree with that because prior to 5, 10 years ago, you would go in for that and the doctor that was willing to take the risk and do it would just jack you up. I would see these guys coming in that were like 60 years old and just ripped and like, why is my blood pressure so high? I feel funny. I got a headache. And I'm like, because you're freaking juiced up and you're probably running a 2,000 total testosterone. And it's not good for you. So anyway, I think it's what we're going to see with the removal of the black box is we're going to see finally physicians and clinicians doing what they've always pretty much known. Like in all of these years that I've worked with people that are on hormone replacement therapy, it's pretty amazing, especially with women. Prevention of cardiovascular disease, bone density, prevention of breaks. There's even shows that there's a lower risk of mortality, not to mention the other things that are just quality of life that have to do with sleep, that have to do with mood, that have to do with focus, that have to do with energy, that has to do with sexual function, kind of all of that. So it's exciting times.
And you've been through this yourself and your wife. You've hit a certain age. This is the thing that's in front of you. So you take it on.
Well, and I do want to have a disclaimer here. I am not a hormone specialist. I am not I have no ties to any companies with this. I have treated many, many patients, perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms, and we do quite well with that. So there is that. But also, I've got a good perspective as a natural physician and GP. You know, I'm an ortho guy, but GP, I do a lot of general practice.
And you're in Florida, right?
Well, my clinic I've recently sold is in St. Simon's Island, Georgia. So we have a very, very busy clinic there. And but anyway, lots of family medicine, lots of women of that age that come into us. And, you know, Chinese medicine does great, but there's a point where it stops doing great. And I think we all kind of have seen that point as practitioners where we can keep the hot flashes at bay. You know what I mean? We can keep some of the other symptoms at bay, but it's like sort of almost like a temporary fix. So anyway, and especially the part.
So I think what I hear you saying is with the hormone therapy, more modern versions of it, you can really take people to a different place.
Yeah, totally. And what people don't understand, I think first is very important. It's easy to talk about on the women's side, harder to talk about on the men's side. But the goal is the same with proper hormone replacement, with well-monitored hormone replacement. We're not trying to take you back to when you were 20 or 25. I mean,
thank goodness.
Nobody wants a 25-year-old Mark Brinson running around with anymore. You know what I mean? I don't want that. I don't want to feel that way. But what I would like to feel is just good. You know what I mean? I'd like to feel like I did when I was maybe in my 30s. And so the symptoms are a lot more insidious than people kind of think they are, or a lot more mild. So with a woman, it's obvious. You have perimenopausal symptoms, and everybody seems to know those because it's well talked about. For men, it had nothing to do with sexual function for me. I mean, if anything, TRT may have brought my libido down a little bit, but it's things like, let me see, it's things like loss of appetite, poor sleep metrics. I've been keeping metrics on my sleep or like Fitbit style, Whoop style for a decade now, so I can test things out. Poor sleep, crushing afternoon fatigue. I mean, I was getting to the point where I almost couldn't keep my eyes open at 3:00 in the afternoon. And those were the main symptoms. I was just like, and, you know, despite working out, not CrossFit, but weight training and that kind of style of workout every day, just not really getting anywhere, not changing my body composition, not getting any stronger, not getting any bigger, not achieving anything. I mean, fit, sure, but not really achieving anything.
Treading water.
Yeah, treading water. And I think those are the symptoms that people, especially men, just don't talk about. With women, a lot of times it's that the 15 pounds that they've gained that they just can't lose. Their metabolism just won't kick back in for it.
Interesting you should mention that. I've got a woman I'm seeing. She thought she was perimenopausal. It turns out she's not. Or maybe she is, actually. But she's had this thing with weight. She goes to the gym. She loves to work out. It's like it's her thing. She loves it. But she keeps gaining a little bit more around her belly, regardless of what she does. And she eats right and the whole thing.
Well, and there's something else at play here. And I'll be really just honest with you. I'm not really sure what it is. It's something that's environmental or something that's in our food or our water or whatever it is. But greater than 5 years ago, it was a pretty simple formula. You up somebody's protein intake, you increase their activity, you decrease their calories by about 20% of what they need for maintenance, and you will simply lose weight. It is fat. It's simple as that. And then all of a sudden that kind of stopped working. And I don't know if we're running around with higher cortisol levels. I don't know if we're running around with microplastics firing our brains. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's happened, but it has become a lot more difficult. And I see it all the time with people that are in the gym. There's just people that have done things that work before that aren't working. And I'm not going to say that aging isn't a part of it, but there's an X factor in there somewhere.
But you've noticed something change.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Talk to me for a moment about cortisol. And the reason I ask that is because it's one of those things everybody's talking about it. People come in and they go, what are you doing here? Like, how can I help? Well, my cortisol's out of control. It's like, oh, tell me about that. But here's the thing. They actually don't know if their cortisol's out of control. They haven't measured it. They have no metrics. They've maybe taken some little quiz on TikTok or it's like, it's the thing. If you have XYZ, your cortisol is blah, blah.
Sure. And, it used to be called adrenal fatigue. That's the way that we used to put it. And now we just say, now they're calling it more cortisol. I haven't heard adrenal fatigue in a while, but that was the old catchword for it. So yes, say for instance that a woman feels perimenopausal or a man feels the symptoms I was talking about, or maybe they are having sexual dysfunction. That's not psychosomatic or anything like that. There are some things that have to do with cortisol and have to do with stress that are very important. And we might touch on peptides in a little bit. And if I do, I'll circle back to semaglutide. Semaglutide, the peptide, not Ozempic and Mounjaro and the things that contain semaglutide. There is an extremely distinct difference between those. So anyway, before doing anything hormonal replacement, when I see a patient that's a woman, the first thing we do is we balance her. We make sure that she isn't blood deficient. We make sure that her hormones are looking pretty good, symptomatically or pattern-wise.
And how do you do that? How do you test for? Do you do the testing?
Good old TCM. Not yet. Good old-fashioned TCM. Because what would happen if you went in to get hormone replacement? They would test you, and if you felt bad, you're going to be all jacked up. So what I say is, look, let's spend a couple months seeing if we can get you as balanced as we can. And if you're feeling pretty good, don't worry about it. Why would you go in? Or if you're not quite feeling right, then get tested so the hormone replacement can dial in a whole lot easier instead of you having to fool around with it for a year or two. So things that lower your cortisol, is the first thing that you should try to do. You should look at your lifestyle. You should look at your diet. You should look at your exercise, your alcohol intake. You should look at your sleep. If those things aren't right, or if you're doing them as best as you possibly can. So I'll freely admit, one of my problems is I was trying to run two businesses, one of which was like a runaway freight train, and I was working out 7 days a week, and I was trying to keep up with my diet and family and everything else that goes on, not to mention my clinic's like 5 hours away. So I was asking a lot of my body, especially for my 50 plus years or whatever it is. I might have gotten away with it when I was 30, but still, no, at 30, that would give somebody adrenal fatigue. So there was that was at play. But all of those things, if done properly, they can lower your cortisol, which allows your body. You got to remember, all of these hormones are so intimately tied together. So even the best hormone replacement isn't going to do it as well as if you could get your body just to do it. You know what I mean? It's because...
Yeah, the original equipment's the best.
Right. And, I will freely admit that there's places that overcomplicate the crap out of it. So you'll get people that are in that business of hormone replacement that as they get 10 years into it, 15 years down the line, they start to get simpler and simpler and simpler. They're like, let's do this and see how your individual body reacts to that, because we're all individuals and we all produce things at different levels. And it's very important.
Sounds like Chinese medicine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you start with a theory, you start with a pattern, but then you kind of pepper it a little bit. You give it a little something, and then you see what happens. And so that's talking about this today is what I can hopefully let people know about that, because we've had hormone replacement therapy demonized, for years, especially for men. Men, there's so many people that are doing this, and nobody's talking about it because they just don't want to be attacked.
Well, where should we start? Should we start with, let's start with the men's side of it, since it doesn't usually get talked about. Let's take that on.
Yeah, and I think the women's side is pretty well gone over. I think...
well, we're going to talk about it.
You can and you can summarize some of it by just saying, it's good. It's not bad. So the men's side of it. So yeah, I was feeling, like I said, just not right. I've always had spleen qi deficiency. So appetite's never been one of my big things. But as long as I'm not overthinking, my appetite's going to be there. My sleep was always great, fine, very restorative. If I could sleep 10, 11 hours, I could sleep off almost anything, charge back the next day. But my main symptoms is I just wasn't feeling that great. I was trying to do all of this stuff, and I'm like, I've got to make some changes. So natural physician, the first things that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm eating right. All right. In retrospect.
And when you say eating right.
Yeah.
What does that mean? There are so many. It's funny. I had a patient come in the other day, and she was saying something to the effect of, well, I eat the standard American diet. And I go, well, standard American diet, what does that mean? Because for a lot of Americans, they're looking at like a protein shake. They're looking at their macronutrients. It used to mean I ate a bunch of crap. But these days, standard American diet might mean you're paying a lot of attention to specific things.
So the more you put your body through, the more you demand from it, your body or your mind, the more important it is. And so for me, what proper diet means is that I should be getting about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight a day. That's one of these things that just universally, and it's hard to get that because I don't like having that much sweet during the day, but it almost always comes in sweet form unless you're making a steak or this and that and the other. One of my other principles that I firmly believe in is the closer to nature that you get, the better it's going to be. I remember, because I've been doing this stuff for 35, 40 years, whatever I've been, however long I've been doing this. But whenever things like margarine or fake fat came out and stuff like that, I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. Butter's great. You know what I mean? Butter metabolizes. So the closer to nature that you can get. But I also very strongly believe in the 80-20 principle, which is 20% of the time you do whatever you want, and 80% of the time do what you're supposed to do. And in a very, very ancient Chinese secret way, if you choose to do something in that 20% that isn't good for you, fully commit to it and enjoy it.
100%.
Because if you think about it too much and it's bothering you mentally, it's going to bother you more physically. So that is exactly what I do. I 80-20, and when I 20 it all the way.
You 20 it all the way. Here's the other thing about the 80-20. If you 20 the right 20%, it's going to get you 80% of what you need.
Yeah. And, I will say this, like when I say that I'm eating bad, like that 20% of the time, probably to other people, it's not really eating that bad, So you get better. You get better over the years at it. Your tastes change. You start to enjoy the things that are good for you, I should say. So getting the diet straight. So even when you
and the mindset around the diet.
Yeah.
I love that mindset piece. Like all things in moderation, including moderation.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I had a chiropractor that was he was a friend of mine, way on the far end of health, I guess you would say. And he came to me because he was just feeling horrible. And the story came out that at his son's, baseball game or something like that the day before, he had 2 beers and 2 hot dogs, and it threw him into metabolic disaster. And he was just for like 3 days just wiped out. And I'm like, wow, you can make yourself delicate. So I mean, but this is coming from former infantry. I'll eat something off the floor as long as it hasn't been there too long.
Well, there's something to be said for having a robustness, and that, you can eat things and it's not going to throw you off. You're not so clean that you're fragile.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got to have a little bit of dirt. So when I started to go through this, I knew I was pushing too much. So the first thing I did is I really drilled down on my food. I should have, in retrospect, cut back on the number of days working out, because the way that I push and stuff like that just can't be maintained without naps and a lot of supplements and extra food. So, and it did help. I'm not going to lie. It did help. I also started dipping into some kidney and some chi tonics, which does bring something with nutrition to mind. With anybody that I'm working with, especially if there's some metabolic things going on or some hormonal things going on, I want them on a men's or women's multi. Just as simple as that. I want them to have a baseline, right? Because if they have a women's or a men's multi, these days, if you look at decent men's and women's multis, you can tell that there's been an herbalist finger stirring that pot just a little bit, because you're like, it didn't used to be this way 20 years ago, but you look at the label now and you're like, oh yeah, they got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and maybe it's just, maybe it's not excellence, maybe it's the catchphrases of the day that they're throwing in there. But with the good brand, I've definitely seen it, and in the right proportions too, like assimilable proportions. So I usually want people to start with just a good men's or women's, and if you want to do even better than just a men's or women's vitamin, a packet. A lot of the packets are good. Pure is really good. Pure encapsulations, they're decent. But also Vitamin Shop, their store brands are pretty right on with most things. Like I've had their store brands up. I'll put their store brands up against lots of other things, because they also test independently very well. So try to get your nutrition right. And that's hard. It's hard to get good, healthy food, protein sources, et cetera, during the day, especially if you're tired, especially if you don't have much of an appetite. Yeah, you're busy. And I don't know, a lot of spleen chi people are like this, but when I get busy, I forget about food. That's like the last thing on my mind. And so anyway, it would not hurt if you're trying to do things naturally too. It's not just as easy as taking like a kidney tonic or some of the big Chinese TCM kidney tonics, because that digestive portion, it's almost like, gosh, doing hormone replacement with Chinese medicine is difficult, because you almost have to pervert the principles of Chinese medicine to do it. So say you want to bodybuild with Chinese medicine, you can do it. Got to pervert the principles, because if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. You know what I mean? So if the better balanced you are, the more it can be sort of systematic, where you're just poking away at little things that are going on. So I did those things. I took, as far as supplements go, like testosterone boosters, I tried an ashwagandha. But it was an ashwagandha. There's something called Triumph by Jay Cutler that's like one of the better ones. Remember, whenever you add any supplements, you always want to make sure that they're assimilable. And not every company does that. Some companies will just throw a bunch of crap in there, but the proportions are so important. That's like, even with Evil Bone Water, it's the proportions. It's not the ingredients. I'll tell you the ingredients all day, but I'm not telling anybody my proportions, just like any other TCM formula. That's the secret sauce.
I mean, this is exactly how TCM formulas work.
That's right.
Right. It's the proportion that's the key.
Right. And people, I help a lot of people for free. And a lot of them are trying to come up with stuff like that. And they're like, well, I'll just put these 5 things in there. But I'm like, but your proportions, that's what's going to take you so long, getting those proportions just right. So this Triumph is like, it's got ashwagandha, zinc, fenugreek, black pepper. It's got some boron. It's got the stuff in it that should help with that. I mean, you can go, yin yang ho, horny goat weed, but those aren't really hormone regulators as much as they are just libido stimulators. So that's when we start to pull away from Chinese medicine by just using a single Chinese herb.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR that's here to make clinical life a little easier. Running a health and wellness practice means managing a lot of moving parts. That's why I love how Jane helps to bring a bit of calm to the busy day. by allowing me to set a schedule that works for my business. I can customize treatment types and times, locations, and staff availability to keep everybody organized and my clinic running smoothly. Need to send intake forms or appointment reminders? Jane can automate those too, helping patients to show up prepared and on time. And when it's time to pay, it's all taken care of. No extra card swipes or billing cleanup later. I especially like that with the welcome email my patients receive, they can fill out the intake, consent, and disclosure forms. It's easy for the patient, and it all goes right into their digital file. If you're looking for software that cares as much about the business side of your clinic as you care about your patients, head to jane.app/demo to learn more. And if you're ready to dive in, use the code Qiological for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. When I think about using Chinese herbs, I'm not thinking so much about using it as a hormone replacement. I'm thinking in terms of yin and yang or qi and blood and things of that, hot or cold. I'm thinking in those terms. So I hear you making some kind of cross connections between Chinese herbs and what we would call hormones or hormone replacement. Help me grok a little bit how you're making that connection.
Yeah, so let's go with women because it's a little easier. So a woman comes into me, she says she's getting the occasional hot flash. She's talking about focus. She's talking about, I feel kind of down. Just the symptoms that I would call perimenopausal or hormonally not feeling right. In Florida, Georgia, we're able to order blood tests and things like that. Don't even bother. Because I know that if I just use the Chinese medicine principles, I take her pulse, I look at her tongue, it's tonification of blood, smoothing liver qi, boosting spleen. It's not real complicated. But I know if I do that within 2 months, she's probably going to be feeling okay. Maybe not great. She might. Maybe not great. But I also have to tell them this, and this speaks to the hormone regulation that's going on. When someone comes to me with those symptoms and they said, yeah, I've only had like 3 periods this year and whatever, and they're like unpredictable. And I tell them very honestly, I say, well, this is either going to end your periods when we get you balanced and you're going to feel good, or you're going to start having regular periods again, but they're not going to be bad. they're going to be a good period of about 3 days, very little PMS, blah, blah, blah. It's like one of the two things will happen. So it's very, very obvious that we're hormonally regulating, even though we're not stating it. But I've also seen it on blood tests too. A person comes in, blood test in hand, and then I'm like, well, look, let's not do anything Western for 2 months. Let's see if we can get you. They come in with new blood test in hand, and all of their values are starting to line up, including thyroid. That's a big one these days too. I think after we removed iodine from salt, because we were all being healthy and stuff like that, I think we have a lot of thyroid-like symptoms that are from a lack of iodine in diet, which goes back to that multi that I talked about. Anyway.
You mean the Himalayan pink magic salt isn't going to help you?
Well, you can get that with iodine in it if you look. So even you can. It's not that it won't help you.
So you think the iodized salt is a good idea?
I do, and I do because it comes in when your mouth tastes salt, right? When the salt clicks, what happens is all throughout your body mineral receptors open up. So delivering iodine with that helps your body to uptake it just so much better. And what iodine deficiency shows up as clinically is it shows up as, why does my patient have like hypo and hyperthyroid symptoms at the same time? Why? And I wasn't getting the correlation. It started happening about 5 to 10 years ago. And then I noticed that we started just using sea salt, and iodine wasn't even in the salt we use for making stuff. It used to be in everything. I mean, iodized salt was just ubiquitous across the board because we all didn't want goiter. So I don't think that we're going to get goiter, but at the same time, I look at iodine as just thyroid food. It just makes it run the way it's supposed to. It just takes that out of the equation. So, and I also don't like to, if I ever have to supplement it, I'll use kelp. Just kelp tablets are super cheap. I don't like using the iodine supplements themselves because there's very little research and guidelines on how much you should actually use. So it's dicey. I would rather just kelp, because again, kelp is going to be assimilable because it's got sodium in it as well. You know what I mean? It's a good source of your minerals and electrolytes.
And it's more food than mineral.
Exactly. When we isolate things, we take away some of the stuff that's actually meant to either buffer or to help uptake. Man, it sounds like I know what I'm doing, but I really don't most of the time.
Well, look, a lot of this stuff is really complicated, and we're talking about multi-factor interactions. It gets complicated very, very quickly.
Yeah, we're not putting it onto a plate with a scalpel or something like that. We're putting it into a human being that runs, and as we know in Chinese medicine patterns, that runs all differently. And that's where things start to get funny with hormone replacement and humans. And that's why people have horror stories about it and say, oh my gosh, you should never do pellets. You should never do hormone replacements. Because they went to somebody and it was done with a chainsaw instead of a scalpel. It was done with a shovel instead of a dropper. And they did have a bad experience with it. Or they didn't start out in a balanced state. If you start out in a relatively balanced state, then the journey is going to be much shorter and much easier. So I go through this year. Now at the time, actually I started the first year of this journey with my wife. She was trying all the same things too, but she was getting definitely perimenopausal symptoms. So she decided that she was going to try hormone replacement. So we found a human performance place that was well recommended, and it was pretty easy. They've got this is a chain. They've got a lot of different ones. They make it easy, either through video conference or you have to go in for testing. Blood testing is a part of it and should really be a part of it. So she started at the same time that I really drilled down on my natural stuff for a year. And hers was at that beginning stage. Hers was a beginning of a very, very tiny testosterone injection once a week, once a week, and a progesterone tablet in the evening 3 times a week. So that was kind of where she did not start with that. She did not need that at first. So I was trying all the things because me being a needle phobe, believe it or not, just the thought of me doing 2 injections a week, which is ideal for men, I just couldn't do it. But after a year of essentially failing, I don't know that I failed. What I did is at the end of the year, I looked at things and I said, unless I can take a nap every day, unless my nutrition is on point, unless I cut back drinking way, way, way considerably, and I'm just trying to do everything right, which is kind of exhausting in itself, and cut back in work a little bit. I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not going to be able to do this. This is just a lot. So I decided to. So I think what I hear you saying is your resiliency just wasn't there. Yeah, if I had been doing all these things when I was 30, oh my gosh, I would be in incredible shape. I mean, that's why I wouldn't work out consistently, because I'd work out for 6 months when I was 30. I'd get all jacked and I wouldn't need to work out for another couple of years. That's not the way it is when you're 50. It just doesn't work that way.
Wait till you get to be 60.
Right? So I will say this for men. With women, you do take a blood test because they want to make sure of where you are. And if you're balanced before you go in, hormonally, they're going to have a really good idea of what your dosages should be and whatnot. They definitely need to look at your thyroid. They need to look at something called your estradiol, which is essentially when you add testosterone to your body, you start producing more estrogen naturally. And it's not the estrogen. The estrogen is actually pretty cool. It's what keeps your heart healthy. It's what keeps your tissues good. It's what keeps your sexual function right. But you start producing this byproduct called estradiol that needs to be tamped down with something for sure. And there's a lot of places, especially because of these black box warnings, that were exceedingly, even the performance places were really pretty conservative with the way that they would do that. For men, you're going to go into one of these places and they're going to tell you, oh, well, you can just take a cream, or you can take a troche, like an under the tongue type thing, or you can do injection, or you can do pellets. So of course, me being a baby about it, I wanted to start with the under the tongue. I was like, oh, you can do that under the tongue?
Yeah, sublingual, that's easy.
Yeah, it don't work. I mean, well, let's start this out to begin with, right? I got my testosterone tested, and let me just tell you, it was low enough that I think that I probably should have been having a period at the time. I mean, it was like, it was tanked. And I'm like, I'm just happy that everything still worked at that level. And I was like, oh, no, this isn't going to work. But so to give you a reference range for men, total testosterone, somewhere like between, let's say, 200, 250 and up to maybe 1,200 or something like that. And so I was running, I don't even know if I was running a 200, you know what I mean? So that's when it becomes like clinical. And again, I am riding myself hard, putting myself up wet continually during that period of time. So anyway, long story short, with the troches, they really don't work that well. You're tied to taking them twice a day. And what happens is you get a big peaks and valleys. So you feel like you're on this little bit of a roller coaster because the absorption and assimilation just isn't that great. And I should have known that as a physician because I'd never really heard of it being orally available. And orally going through your digestive system and troche or nasal are really very, very different things. Nasally and sublingually, we can get a lot of things straight into the bloodstream, believe it or not. And it does work in some cases, depending on what you're using, like in the case of peptides.
Well, it's also why people put drugs up their nose.
Well, yeah, it is. They don't swallow them. They yeah.
Right? It gets into your system really, really quick.
It does. The creams, I didn't want to mess with because the creams not only are messy, you have to do it daily, but you can influence, like if it gets on your partner or if it gets on your sheets or if it gets on whatever, you're giving somebody else. It's a very, and the absorption isn't supposed to be fantastic on those either. So, troches for a year. You have to get blood tests. My blood test always came up fine. I've always been one of those people that even when I'm sick, my blood tests are good, which is very annoying. But a year of doing that, and my blood tests were always fine, but my testosterone, I don't think it ever got above 400. So was I better than I was before? Yes. I wasn't crushed in the afternoon. But was my focus what it should be? Was my sleep what it should be? Was my appetite what it should be? I was like, yeah. So after that second year, during that second year, actually, my wife decided that she was going to go to pellets. Now, pellets are a whole different animal. People are very against pellets in many ways because they've had bad experiences with them. Because basically, once they're in you, for women, it's like 3 months, and for men, it's like 4 months. They're in you. That's it. Now, she felt comfortable with going to pellets because she had been through 2 years of, a year of natural and a year of injection. So she was like, yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with this. And we also knew somebody that was very, very good with bioidentical hormone pellets. And bioidentical, there's some people that will argue there isn't any bioidentical because it's all synthetic. But there are definitely some products that are out there. There's different ones that, like the most common bioidentical hormones, your body recognizes 5 different things. It recognizes 4 of those as your own. They're all your own, right? But there's the product that we started taking recently that recognizes all 5 of the different factors, like it is like your own testosterone. So anyway, she started with the pellets, and she was just like exceedingly impressed because, first of all, she did not have any of the dips that you get during the week if you're doing it twice a week. Because you can imagine, even though it has a half-life of several days, you're still riding a smaller roller coaster, not like troches or anything. But yeah, she was like, wow.
Because it's sustained. It's a low dose, sustained, ongoing.
Yeah. And what they should tell you is it really doesn't kick in. Like, it's really not super smooth until about the second or the third time that you do it. And your body starts to really get used to it. This is also where Chinese medicine comes in phenomenally well. My patients that I've encouraged to get on hormone replacement because we've tried all the things, they are like, listen, I'm so glad you pushed me to do that because it's absolutely changed my life. They're like, I just had these mental lows. I had these things that were going on. They're like, and I feel good now most of the time. You don't feel jazzed. You don't feel jacked up. You don't feel weird. You just like, I feel pretty good. I have a good sense of well-being, whatever. So her year of doing that encouraged me to finally go ahead and do pellets myself. But also remember, I've got this year or so of research that I've done on what my dose should be, of doing the things right, of trying all the different things to fix it. And so I went in with a fairly good confidence with the person, but also a fairly good confidence with what my experience was going to be, just better than it had before. But it was kind of embarrassing.
You weren't taking a wild swing at it from the get-go.
That's when people have bad experiences, that's almost always what's happened. They come in just feeling horrible and they take a wild swing at it, and then it doesn't get any better. But it was kind of, it was a little bit embarrassing because the person that was the best in the whole area was a gynecologist. So I'm like the only guy. So do you work with guys? And they're like, oh, sure, we work with guys. So I had to go to my wife's gynecologist. I had a gynecologist for a brief period of time.
So you got yourself a gyno. Well, they are hormone specialists, I guess, when you think about it.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody that has a great reputation. So I went for about a year with doing the pellets. Now, something that's very important that wasn't told to me adequately because I was going to a gynecologist. Like I said, with men, this just isn't talked about, is there's something called DIM, dimethylone, methyl something. Anyway, DIM, D-I-M, it's not an estrogen blocker. It's a estradiol metabolizer. So that negative stuff that you can get, and this is where people, especially men, have bad experiences. You raise that testosterone.
Now, isn't this a thing where your testosterone actually converts into, is it estradiol? And then you get all kinds of problems from that?
It converts into dihydrotestosterone, DHT, which is the stuff that can make your hairline recede if you go too big, right? But it's also the stuff that protects your heart. But this is the other one. So what happens is your testosterone increases, your estrogen starts to increase to match it, but it's the byproduct of the metabolism of estrogen, estradiol, that's what gives you bloating, what gives you tiredness, what can give you like lack of sexual desire. So you can actually be on testosterone and it can lower your sexual desire. It can make you bloated. And that's what it was doing to me. It was making me like really just afternoon bloated and uncomfortable. But since I was going to a gynecologist, because again, it's not talked about, I was only taking 50 to 100 milligrams of DIM. For a male, it should be 300. You should start with 300 milligrams, and then you should go up. So when we went to our new person that's been a friend of ours for a long time, esthetician, medical esthetician, but she became an NP, and she wanted to specialize in it. She's like on the cutting edge of all that new stuff. So she found the best pellets and this, that, and she's like, oh yeah, you got to take at least 300 or 400 milligrams of DIM a day. And all of a sudden, wow. I mean, all of a sudden I was like, this is how I'm supposed to feel. Now, during that whole period before, I didn't get any body composition changes. That's not what happens with proper testosterone or hormone replacement. It's not like all of a sudden I'm ripped and all of a sudden my body fat's decreasing and my muscle mass is increasing. This is, I'm just running probably 900 to 1,000 total testosterone, which is probably just what I've run up until maybe my early 40s or my mid 40s, right? So no real difference in that. All the blood tests come out great. You've got to look for things like platelet count. You don't want red blood cell count. You don't want too many red blood cells. Definitely have to look for things like estradiol rising because that's what gives you the negative side effects. But once it was dialed in, I did end up, and I made some dietary changes, but I lost about 10 pounds, honestly, of mostly bloat. But it really isn't changing body composition. So
you got rid of water.
Yeah, and the bloat was bad. And this is what I would encourage people. If you get any takeaway from this, TRT or hormone replacement for men is absolutely nothing like taking testosterone and for anabolic steroids. It's not even in the same ballpark as this, because like say the amount of testosterone that I've got in pellets, right? Or if I was taking it with injection, would be like 1/10 of what I would be taking if I were taking steroids to actually gain muscle. And so that's what used to happen, which is why I didn't recommend it for men at all, because I would see them go into the doc and the doc's going to run them at like 2,000, 2,500 testosterone, which is horrible for your heart, which is horrible. I mean, a stroke waiting to happen, blood pressure event waiting to happen. But now what a good one will do is they'll just put you, so say you're running a 900, that's about 70th percentile for men. And that shouldn't make you feel any different than you normally do as far as, except for more focused, less tired, better sleep. And so what we normally do in Western medicine with these things is we patch this with medications. So if I had gone into, say, for instance, the VA and told them that I had crushing afternoon fatigue, what they would have probably done is suggested that I go on some sort of narcolepsy drug, which are basically stimulants, which essentially make things worse, because now you've got stimulants that are depleting your yin and your jing and everything else. And so you just get on this train of getting more depletion from the things you're doing to make up for low hormones. So I guess anyway, 3 years in, we're both dialed in really well. The DIM is important. Kara did have to start adding 3 times a week a very, very low dose of progesterone in the evening time before bed. I just do the DIM. I don't have any other medications or anything like that. Arguably, I should be on some mental health medications, but I've never gone anywhere to be diagnosed, so I don't have anything as far as I know.
What, you want to get rid of your superpower?
That's exactly right. So, but it's been
I mean, in all seriousness, if I was a kid these days, and going to school, they probably wouldn't put me on some kind of, attention drug. But fortunately, I grew up in a time where that wasn't a thing. We spent a lot more time running around outside anyway. That was okay. So we could burn it off. But it just seems to me that there are some aspects of being a human. They might be unusual and they might make you quirky. Doesn't mean that it's a pathogenic condition.
I totally agree. I think that this is probably not a popular opinion, but I think a lot of the on the spectrum type stuff is you just have a human that's living in a world that isn't meant for humans. We're not meant to have this kind of overstimulation. We're meant to get bored and have to go outside because our mom wants to watch stories for a couple hours in the afternoon, and we have to stay outside so they can regroup during the day and go make things with sticks or forts in the woods or whatever we have. You know what I mean? We're not meant for most hours of the day being really overstimulated.
Yeah, that'd be a great topic for a different conversation.
Sure.
But I think it's a real issue.
Oh, yeah. So I do want to mention that part of this journey, and I kind of left it out and we left it for the end, part of this journey was with peptides, or what they call research peptides.
Research peptides?
Yeah. So these have been on my radar for at least 3 to 5 years. And we started experimenting with them at first. And then there's a few of them that actually made it to patient care. So I'm constantly experimenting with different products and things like that on myself or on my patients or on my family, usually my family, my staff, myself, before things make it to patient care. And very few things make it to patient care. They've got to, there's some pretty big barriers that they have to pass. First of all, they've got to be sustainable. They can't be taste too bad, cost too much, be too expensive. It's got to be something that has a lot of bang for the buck. So peptides, I feel like, are 100% like the medicine of the future. There is right now a gold rush going on with them. And I think in our profession, they are in the area that, especially under certain circumstances, certain states, that we can and should be using or recommending them. It's kind of a gray area, so it's a little weird right now. I'll just tell you that. But when you start looking into research peptides, you just have to remember just one thing, really, is that all they are is a trigger. So it's what they call a short amino acid string. So not like a fully developed one, just a short amino string that's really very benign, but they trigger your body to do something. So the very first ones.
So they're like an enzyme or a catalyst of some sort?
It's just a peptide. So it goes in,
So what is a peptide? You know what? It's been a long time since I've done biochemistry. What in the heck is a peptide?
short amino acid string. And you're talking about very, very tiny doses of this stuff too, tiny doses. So the first ones that came out were triggers that triggered your body to produce more growth hormone. So I've worked with athletes most of my life, and I would never suggest that they take growth hormone because there's too many variables with it. There's how much do you take? It can cause all kinds of other symptoms. It's not really, it can cause some diseases that are hidden in your DNA to crop up because it helps you replicate DNA quicker. But this can't do that. Your body's just producing more. So ipamorelin and samorelin were a couple of the first ones. And as much as I hate needles, we did it's a very, very tiny subcutaneous belly fat injection for 2 months and tried it. And it really was pretty good. It wasn't like taking a steroid. It wasn't like taking a performance enhancing drug per se, but your hair, your skin, your nails, growth hormone is like the fountain of youth type thing. Also growth hormone, exogenous growth hormone is very expensive too. But I did notice some other things like my discs, they were feeling pretty darn good. My gums became very hardy. The occasional bleeding with brushing the teeth, not only was there not that, but also I had noticed that I was getting a little gap between my front teeth like I used to have when I was little because my gums were not as plump as they used to be, and that gap closed itself right up. So there were some really kind of cool benefits to it, but it's a daily injection. I'm like, nah. So I think we tried that a couple times with similar results each time. It's a really, really good one. The next one.
How long did it take you to see these results?
Oh, you were definitely, with ipamorelin and samorelin, probably within 3 or 4 weeks you were noticing. I feel like if you're doing anything and they say it's going to take several months to notice something, it might not be a great supplement. That's like one of my things too. I got to notice something. So there's a lot that have come along the pipe, but the other two that I really do believe in, there's something called TB500 and BPC 157 that are nasally because they're produced in small amounts in the gut. And these are triggers to open up growth hormone receptors in the tissues. So when I've done these nasally, within 2 weeks, old injuries. So I've got this nagging knee that pops up every once in a while, undiagnosable. This nagging shoulder that pops up every now and again. Within 2 weeks, it's just not there. It's just gone. It's like and not only, I usually continue to take it for 6 weeks, right? But then the first time I did it, that lasted 3 to 4 months. The next time I did it, it lasted 4 to 6 months. Next time it lasted even longer. And now the knee rarely comes back, but I didn't notice along this time from the infantry, my back was pretty erect. I really haven't had many back problems since I was experimenting with peptides at all. I mean, my back is feeling like pretty darn good. And I don't take it easy on, well, I take it kind of easy on the deadlifts or the squats or things like that. I continue to do those. So what ended up making the patient care is they found out that ipamorelin, the growth hormone stimulator, is actually nasally available, but only at 30%. So if you just triple the dose, so a little bit of that and some BPC 157, which is what we're experimenting with now with several patients, myself and whatnot, is really kind of remarkable. Now, you have to understand that if you're doing that, it's not like an exogenous drug where even if my nutrition is crappy, I don't have any vitamins in me, how am I going to produce more growth hormone if I don't have those things? So it's not like it's just magic, but it's pretty magical. And that was when we circled.
And it's working on the receptors.
Right. Yeah, it's working on the receptors.
It's making the receptors more sensitive.
Yep.
So if there's some growth hormone floating around and there's nowhere for it to bind, might as well not be there. But if the receptors are open.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so to circle all that back around with semaglutide, we did a bunch of experiments with that with several people. Just the peptide does not seem to have, it has a fraction of any of the side effects that the drugs do. And that doesn't surprise me at all because they're like, oh, and they started to equate the two. Oh, Ozempic is semaglutide. No. Semaglutide is in Ozempic, but it's got a lot of other stuff in it. So we never noticed anybody having any significant negative symptoms, not having to step the peptide up very much. And the magic of that, what that does is it stimulates hyperstabilization of blood sugar. So from a dietary standpoint, here's how that works. When I go into calorie deficit, my cortisol levels rise. And when your cortisol levels rise, what that does is makes you hold on to fat better. So if I go into calorie deficit and my cortisol levels don't rise, then I don't gain any fat. But also they're starting to use semaglutide for addictions of all sorts, because the hyperstabilization of blood sugar without the corresponding rise in cortisol ends up decreasing cravings like of all sorts. So you're not having cravings not only for food, but you're not having cravings for alcohol, you're not having cravings for drugs, because you've just got really stable blood sugar. So anyway, these things, we are on the cusp of something pretty exciting, amazing times we live in.
The teishin is a gentle and effective tool for treating patients without inserting acupuncture needles. Using a teishin causes no pain or discomfort, allowing practitioners to treat even the most sensitive of people. Using the teishin invites practitioners to evolve senses and dormant capacities. Humans are capable of great subtlety, far greater than we often believe. Working with the teishin compels us to confront many of our assumptions about what makes acupuncture effective. This exciting journey of self-discovery helps practitioners to refocus how they practice acupuncture. If you'd like to dig in deeper, check out episode 303, where I talk about all things teishin with Dr. Bob Quinn. Blue Poppy carries a series of handcrafted teishins created by a silversmith cooperative in San Pancho, Mexico. They also offer many videos on their YouTube channel, which provides basic instruction on how to use a teishin and other non-insertive tools that they carry. Dr. Bob Quinn's best-selling book on how to effectively use the teishin is also available. Visit www.bluepoppy.com for teishins and other fine Japanese acupuncture tools. Mark, this is really interesting hearing about hyperstabilization of blood sugar, because I don't know much about hormones. This has been fascinating, and I'd like to learn a little bit more. I keep thinking about this from my Chinese medicine mind. I hear about stabilization of blood sugar, and I'm thinking, oh man, you've just totally taken that earth element, you've taken that Tai-yin Yang-Ming axis, and just balanced it out.
Yeah, and the problem with Chinese medicine is the modern world we don't have access to the same type of things that the ancient world did. So I go and I try to get somebody's spleen qi or stomach fire working the way that it's supposed to. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I was assuming they were going out and having nutrient-dense whole foods. That's what you had, nutrient-dense whole foods. So
we didn't have food in a box.
Right. So now I don't really know what they're going to eat. And people, I remember when I was a kid, I was always ready to eat because food wasn't that abundant or available. And so now that it is, people tend to dismiss it half the time or think of it as a very secondary thing. So we do run into patients where we stop getting where we need to go. And it's an environmental, it's a cultural, it's a modern problem.
Tell me more about these what am I trying to say? I hear you talk about this thing with the peptides, and it's a small chain of amino acids, and it asks the body to do one particular thing, it opens up.
That's it.
Certain receptors or to balance blood sugar.
Yeah.
How do you know which peptide to use for which thing? I guess the question is, Mark, what are you aiming at with using the peptides?
So since I first started studying them, the list has grown almost exponentially of the ones that they're using for different things to, again, you're triggering the body to do something. I stick very close to the beginnings, and I stick very close to what's proven. And it's really easy to see because they're usually the ones that are available in compounding pharmacies. So once it makes it to a compounding pharmacy, it's kind of like one of these things, even though it's a gray area, they know, and they know we know, and everybody knows, but it's just not one of those things that is is mainstream yet. And you will see some places that prescribe it. So say for instance, my NP that does my particular pellets, she's on the cusp of everything, and she orders from a very pure compounding pharmacy source that she knows is a good source. And that's one of the difficulties, is sourcing them right now is a little bit difficult because they are gray. Federally, they can come in and they can shut you down for no particular reason. And then 3 months later, they're like, oh, well, no, you can do this again. People with things like this, they usually get in trouble by making claims. Making claims or giving dosages, you know what I mean? And it's something that you would think, well, why isn't the pharmaceutical companies, aren't they all over this? I was actually really surprised when they picked up on semaglutide, because it is such a cheap amino acid string that I didn't think there was any like money to be made on it. And this may be cynical me talking, but when all of a sudden they turned it into a drug, oh, that you've got to take for life, oh, that you have to step up, the dosage, oh, that you have to do this and that. I don't think it's the semaglutide that makes it that way. I think it's the whatever they've turned it into that happens with. So the pharmaceutical industry abandoned most of these peptides a long time ago because there's nothing to patent. Like I said, it's just an amino acid. There's not patentable. You can't do anything with it.
That'd be like patenting herbs. You can't patent an herb.
But anyway, I've been amazed. Right, exactly. I have been amazed at their PR campaign of information and disinformation that go with it. So they essentially figured out how to demonize semaglutide or associate it directly so that people would be afraid to use natural sources of semaglutide. It was pretty brilliant. I don't know why I was that surprised.
Now, how have peptides been used in the past? Like, where's this come from?
So, you know what? That's a really good question. I'm not real sure. It got on my radar in some of the human performance things, because it's not like a performance enhancing drug. It's nothing like that. It's not going to show up on a drug test. Are athletes using it? I think that they would be silly not to use it. So I don't know where it kind of blossomed, but I know that it really blossomed about 4 years ago. So where you're hearing about these things are in a lot of forums, online forums, where people are sharing information. It's not like it used to be. It used to be in the beginning, since they're research peptides. It used to be that, so I had my rat take blah, blah, blah of this much of ipamorelin. So now it's pretty mainstream since people are prescribing it. There is a whole nother subject called SARMs that are kind of a bridge between steroids and peptides, but I would not dip into SARMs. SARMs can be quite dangerous. So there's that kind of stuff that's out there too. But yeah, we're coming up with a lot of really cool things these days.
I think what I hear you saying is there is a refinement in biochemistry. In terms of the hormone replacement therapy, it's not what it was 20 years ago. In terms of things like steroids or Ozempic, for that matter, right? These very drug-like things, there's something in between. There's this peptide. Now, did I hear you correctly that you don't do the peptide long-term necessarily? You do a little bit here and there? Or is it an ongoing thing?
Yeah, especially like the combination that I like now, that I'm experimenting with and like now, is I like the spray that's ipamorelin and the BPC 157, just because it's like that patient that you get that you've taken most of the way, but it still bothers them every once in a while, whatever that is. I've even had she's got chronic lung conditions, and she's like, I want to make sure that you keep bringing me the peptides because I definitely notice a difference in my lungs with them. And it all goes back to that hacking thing. Like, do you need to take stuff like that if you're 25 or 30? I'm not really sure that you do. But growth hormone just continues to decrease after the age of about 25 or 30, to where it is part of what we see as aging. Could you take it more continually? Probably. But I like to, again, going with my clinical principles of things, people are very apt to do something that has a beginning, middle, and end. So even if it's a little expensive, or even if it's a little uncomfortable, or if it's a little whatever, if I know that it's 6 weeks and I can compartmentalize it, people comply with things like that. Just like with TCM, I hate telling people that you're going to have to do this forever. TCM, we're supposed to try to recreate patterns. But I like peptides in that that realm too, because I have noticed that some of the things that it takes care of, I don't have to go back and police up again. So like a couple times of doing ipamorelin and my gums were good. Gums are still good. They haven't regressed or anything like that. Everything's the same. Like I said, my back problem's still pretty good. So it's going in and making repairs where it can. And you know how it is with the body. There's some things that your body can only repair so much, but it definitely does better over time with them. The more times it goes in and takes a crack at it, which is, it's all we're doing is Chinese medicine. We're just triggering the body to try to heal itself. So it's exciting stuff for me. I think that's where we're headed with medicine. You trigger the body to do it, and the body's going to do it better than an intervention would.
I love that idea. Maybe because I love acupuncture.
Oh, sure.
And acupuncture is very much that kind of a thing where a small stimulation in the body, and the body goes, oh, I know how to do this. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, exactly.
I like this idea too with like the growth hormone. There's less and less produced as we get older, but it's still there. Producing it is one thing. The availability to take it up. I mean, there's your yin-yang component right there. You may have it. You might even have plenty of it. But if your body's not capable of taking it in, it might as well not be there.
Well, yeah. And then you imagine that you've got tools that you can direct it to the site. So you've got either herbs, or you've got topicals, or you've got acupuncture, or you've got massage or something that you can direct it to pay attention to that area even more. And then all of a sudden, that old knee, your body takes another crack at it, has everything that it needs. That's the way that I look at herbs often. When we're trying to heal something, we just need to get the body everything it needs to that area in order to heal. It needs circulation, it needs energy circulation, it needs oxygen, it needs nutrients, and that's kind of all we're doing. And then telling it to, hey, wake up, fix this.
Yeah. I got a couple other questions. The first one is, why is it that it seems in my clinic right now, progesterone is the hormone of the month? Almost every woman I see with any kind of menstrual thing of any nature is now being put on progesterone.
Yeah, and I think it's short-sighted. It has a lot to do, as with a woman aging, with her sexual function. It has to do with mood. It has to do with a lot of things that are the fun things that not the fun things. The best way to put it is the quality of life things that they want to really...
Those are the fun things.
Yeah, the fun things. But again, if the testosterone's waning, it's like, it's a patch. So I see that a lot too, where people start with the progesterone, or the MD will start them, or the GP will start them with birth control, which essentially sometimes is nearly the same thing, right? Or maybe an IUD that also has hormones in it. And it does a bit.
Hormone secreting. Mm-hmm.
You know, it does a bit, but without adding the testosterone, it only does a bit. So that's the exciting part, is we're actually starting to get people that are looking at that very closely. So, and I can always tell when somebody said, oh yeah, well, you know, my doctor gave me this progesterone, and they gave me this birth control, even though that I'm not of that age, to help with these symptoms. And then I'm like, well, can I see your blood test? And they show me the blood test, and it was just like the most basic of blood tests. They didn't test for estradiol. They didn't test for thyroid. They didn't test for any of the other factors that can make a big difference into how all this fits together. Because it's just like anything else. You give somebody a lot of one thing, it's going to affect sort of all the other things. It's very, it's kind of a roll the dice and inaccurate way of doing it. So I guess if people are trying to find someone to do it appropriately, it really needs to be somebody that specializes in it. Your GP is not the place to go for hormone replacement. It's just not. Especially, I don't know how quick they're going to be to not worry about the black box warnings, because things in the world right now seem to be very dynamic, and it could change back or whatever. I don't know. But definitely somebody that specializes in, like, not an endocrinologist, somebody that specializes in human optimization, in anti-aging, and whatever. Because these days they'll even look at peptides. You'll give them a list of things. Now, you don't need to be sold a litany of things. Like I said, it's much easier than that. But yeah, progesterone right now is the darling.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Oh, I will mention something else. Talked about how important DIM was to balance things out, and the proper amounts of DIM. Again, mine ended up being 300 times or 3 times what I was originally given to get mine right. Do not even though the temptation may be there or the physician may be talking about it. You do not want to use actual estrogen blockers, medications, unless you really need to. Remember, we're trying to get our body to recreate the things that it was doing when we were like, say, for instance, 30, right? We're getting it to function that way. So blocking estrogen is not good. It can harden the arteries. It can cause, like I said, cardiac problems. It can thicken the blood. Progesterone is pretty good, even for men. It's that raised estradiol, the byproduct of it, that we don't want. And DIM helps you metabolize that. So a last resort should be using an actual estrogen blocker. Now, I will say this. One of the things that I might have tried in retrospect when I was doing everything as naturally as possible first, that I didn't know about DIM at the time, and I might have tried to add that initially along with my testosterone boosters. But again, they were a bit lackluster.
It's a learning process, isn't it?
It is. And again, everybody's individual, but as you know, Chinese medicine physicians, we already know that. We already know that we have to look at the person.
Yeah, we have a sense of it, for sure. Mark, what about like osteoporosis?
Absolutely. That is one of the things that we've probably, the most damage those black box warnings did is there's a lot of people that are going through osteopenia and osteoporosis that if they were on hormone replacement therapy, they wouldn't be having that. The maintenance of our bones, especially with women, is very, very tied to that. So, yeah, it was kind of like one of those oops. Oops, turns out it's not bad after all. It's actually quite good. But again, a lot of the people in the trenches, we've known it. We've seen it change lives, completely. It was just looked at with a lot of fear.
So for osteopenia, osteoporosis in particular, but osteopenia even, check the hormone levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
See where things are at there. It's like go upstream, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's not even like you're like, well, I'm past menopause. Am I not going to get benefits from it? No, you probably will get a lot of benefits from it. Just say you've got a woman that's 70 years old, she can probably still get benefits from it, especially when it comes to bone density and things like that. And again, I have to reiterate that I'm not talking about getting anybody over normal levels. I'm getting people to normal levels or maybe a little bit high, but high normal to just feel decent.
What about these peptides for things like osteopenia?
So, I am not certain yet. So it's weird. They're exciting and they're complicated and you have to figure out your dosing. And again, they normally start out as injectable. So I'm sure there probably are some that can help with bone density. There's even some that can help with like skin tone. They can do some very, very interesting things. So, but again, it's so vast or becoming so vast that I just kind of stick to the ones that are like the best known and the ones that are being picked up by the establishment. I dip into every once in a while to see what's going on and what people are using for this. But again, I think they're also overcomplicating it. I feel like if you come up to the 1,000-foot view, if I have a little more growth hormone and I have receptors open up to receive it, I mean, the other health things are going to kind of fall in line.
80-20 rule, right?
Right, exactly. And I don't look at them as something that fixes really broken. Like I said, you can't take somebody that's got just a horrible diet. Their health is poor. They don't do anything to help themselves, with the exception of maybe something like semaglutide, because you can get them to a comfortable position where they can start taking care of themselves. But for the most part, it's not like a panacea. I mean, you still have to maintain some health.
You still got to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Like with everything else. Yeah.
Of course. If people were interested in learning more about this peptide thing, man, you got my attention with that. That's just because I like barely even know what a peptide is.
Right.
Okay, a small bit of amino acids. Like the thing that's fascinating to me about this is it's like a small spark that opens up other biological processes in the body that then normalize themselves. I mean, again, it sounds like an acupuncture needle to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it basically is. It's coaxing the body into doing something and not forcing it. And that's the effect that you get too. It's not like you take it and within 30 minutes you're like, zing. You take it and then you're like, all right. I'm really starting to feel this. This is really starting to work. You know what I mean? It's very consistently that way. Even the same thing. I haven't used.
I like the idea of coaxing.
Yes, exactly. Coaxing. So I would say to learn more, definitely a lot of it's forum based now. So there's different Facebook groups and things like that. And the problem is that a lot of the companies that produce these things, or actually not produce, that sell these things, where they always get in trouble is making claims. It's the same thing in my business. You can't make claims. You make claims, the FDA is going to come knocking on your door, no matter if what you're selling is legal or not legal. They're going to say, well, it's not FDA, so it's not legal for you to do that. So most of the activity goes on in the forums, and I would kind of like find one of those and just lurk around a little bit, see what they're posting about, see what the current thing is, search iPamorelin or BPC 157 a little bit. There's enough information on the web that you can kind of navigate through it. I bet there's courses on it. What's that?
You can find the rabbit hole of your choice.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But yeah, I think that we're going to see some pretty remarkable protocols and things come from it. I think it kind of fills in that gap clinically too. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And again, you don't want to go to a regular endocrinologist. You want to go to someone who's focused on human performance and regenerative medicine and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and anti-aging, human performance, and has a good reputation for it. And like I said, I get a good recommendation. That's what we always do, and it's paid off. I think again, get balanced beforehand to make sure that your body's running as good as you can get it with TCM and natural. And then when you go in, you're going to get a decent blood test that's going to show about how off you are on things. And then they'll be able to dial it in for you within just a couple of months. They should, let's say within 6 months, they can get it dialed in for you. But yeah, good stuff.
It makes a lot of sense before going in for that kind of hormonal intervention. See if you can get the body to some kind of state of balance first, like you were saying. That just makes a lot of sense. Because then you're ready to launch off into something else.
Yeah. Well, and aging isn't what it used to be. I think a lot of it's because we know a lot more now, but also, you have to look at seriously what we're requiring of the body and the mind every day. And so it used to be that you get to be of a certain age and it was you work a little bit and then you come home and you lay around. And that's kind of not the way things are these days. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're in your 50s, you have 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that hopefully we'll see more men talking about it. And a lot of times hormone replacement for men, like I said, one of the reasons for coming on the show is I feel that it's really been demonized. Because immediately they're like, oh, well, you're on testosterone. So, that must be nice. And no, I work hard. You know what I mean? And regular testosterone or hormone replacement, it doesn't give you any appreciable difference in your body composition or anything like that. It just levels the playing field for you. That's all.
Sounds like a really awesome chi tonic.
Yeah, basically.
When you come right down to it.
Well, and helping you to metabolize your calories better, sleep better. It's helping you do exactly that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Regulatory really is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people suffer because of these black box warnings, et cetera. Really, most MDs wouldn't touch a patient unless they were below like a 250 or sometimes below a 200, which by then, just below 500, you're usually feeling the symptoms of lower testosterone, which you could equate to just feeling, we've all felt them before because, this is a fluid thing. It's not like it stays the same throughout the day or throughout the week. We've all felt them before when we've just had a really, really hard week or we've really asked a lot of ourselves. And then you'll get those same type symptoms. And probably if you were to test your testosterone at that point, it would be fairly low. The time when you know that you've got to come home and you've got to rest all weekend and eat, that's kind of the same thing. But guys just don't equate it. They're like, you're going to take something like that, you're either going to get all jacked up and buffed, or you've got sexual dysfunction. And really those aren't even in the equation for a proper hormone replacement.
Well, I appreciate your perspective on the middle way with this.
Yeah. I hope to help a lot of people, and at least to shine a little light on it. That's what I think the important part is, to say that this is not something that should be demonized, but also it should be done with great care. I think that our position as acupuncture physicians is perfect to be able to help people along the journey to make sure that all of this goes smoothly for them, to help them get dialed in from the perspective of, like you said, tonifying stomach chi, getting their sleep better. I mean, the two together are just life-changing.
Mm-hmm. I know lots of people with sleep issues.
Yeah. Epidemic these days.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you for your time. It's always great to hang out and discuss this stuff.
Yeah, of course. It's been a great talk.
We may have to come back a little bit later after there's more to say with peptides, because I think you'll probably know more and more being the mad scientist you are.
Absolutely. We keep experimenting and we keep refining things, but it's exciting stuff.
All right, brother. Keep up the good work.
All right, Mike. You have a great day too.
I appreciate Mark sharing with us his personal journey and exploration of HRT. This conversation helped me to reframe how I think about hormone replacement therapy and Chinese medicine as collaborators rather than competitors. As we know, East Asian medicine excels at regulating the terrain, adjusting yin and yang, smoothing liver qi, supporting blood, and all of that helps the body to adapt through transitions like menopause, andropause, and for that matter, aging in general. But as Mark points out, there can be a threshold where regulation alone isn't enough, especially in the context of modern stress, environmental toxin overloads, and accumulative wear of time. He points out that thoughtfully prescribed, well-monitored HRT, it can help, not by overriding the body, but instead to restore hormonal balance and receptor sensitivity. When hormones are brought back into a healthy physiological range, Chinese medicine has more to work with again. Acupuncture and herbs can then do what they do best by improving resilience, regulating digestion, sleep, mood, and help the whole system integrate those changes more smoothly. Mark's thoughts on sequencing and discernment, using Chinese medicine first to balance and stabilize, then layering in HRT when appropriate, and continuing acupuncture to fine-tune the process. This isn't about chasing youth or hacking biology. It's about restoring capacity, adaptability, and maybe more importantly, a sense of well-being. Meeting the body where it actually is and giving it the right kind of support to move forward. In a way, I can see HRT as another way of addressing the excesses or deficiencies that arise as we move through the cycles of 7 and 8. His closing remarks concerning the peptides, it sounds a bit like how we'd think of a chi tonic. Just because something's not in the traditional materia medica, that doesn't mean modern substances work outside of the framework of traditional East Asian medicine thinking. We just need to understand how they fit in. And in that way, we can skillfully address their use with our patients. You've made it all the way through this episode. I suspect there's something in this conversation that held your attention, maybe gave you some unexpected insight or reminded you of something that you know well and appreciate. Why not seize the moment now and share this podcast with a friend? They'll be glad to know that you're thinking about them. Qiological is a team effort. Ruth Asparis and Ann Manalo are our editors. Neil Matthews is the WordPress dude who tames the tech. Lauren Delfonzio keeps us all organized, and Sharon Sherman, who brings her eye for detail and reliably asks the troublesomely helpful questions. If you love the podcast and would like to contribute financially to help keep the microphones hot and the servers juiced up, become a member. There's some benefits too. Details are on the website.